That was my last thing to get hung. The other one fell off. Anyway, welcome back to the studio. Not that you would notice, but I've been absent for a couple weeks because things have been hectic around here, and that seems to happen at the end of every year. So to get my feet wet again, I'm going to do something simple today, and that is a little bit of Santa Claus, Kris Kringle. And I have a really cute background block. This just has really small dots on it, red, yellow, blue, green. So it's going to pick up the dots in Santa's brim and on his little pom-pom at the top of his hat. So this will go pretty quick. There's only about 10 different pieces in here. And then after that, I'm going to go ahead and pick probably a quick little inner border and outer border. I was going to do that before, have that already sewn on, so that when I finished with the applique, the block was actually finished. But I was having a hard time actually figuring out what would look good. I was trying to find a cave fabric, since a couple, well actually only one of these fabrics is a cave fabric. It's a predominant one, the loud one. So, but I didn't find anything that spoke to me, and I was afraid of picking something. I didn't think it was going to be the right thing without seeing it visually on here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my light box out and get my pieces out. You know, I've done this before a couple dozen times, and so it won't be too long before we get into this light box and pull out my pieces, and then we can get started. A lot of the patterns that for the applique, they come folded inside the kit, but this particular one, probably one of the early ones, was printed on 4 sheets of paper, and you can see on the dotted line is where you would cut, and we would put it to the other pieces of paper to fit it together. And so I'm going to cut on the dotted line and then overlap it with those pieces. So that'll be pretty simple. So I wonder what special traditions that you all have for your holidays. I don't know that I can think of any special ones that my family has. I don't know that it's special that I cook all the time. I've been cooking the family holiday meal for so long I can't remember. My dad used to make potato salad, but my dad's potato salad kind of morphed over the years. It used to be potato salad, but it ended up being mashed potatoes with relish, eggs, and mustard mayonnaise in it. There was absolutely no texture left of the potatoes or chunks or anything, but we all still liked it. I don't know if that's really a tradition though. So let's see, page 2, page 1, section 1 of this goes up here. See if I can put my puzzle together. Yay, I got one piece. And I'm just going to put this together with Scotch tape. We're not going to be ironing or anything on this. A lot of times I do iron on my paper just to get any crinkles out of it, but because this wasn't folded, I won't need to do that. Almost could use the extra set of hands, but I don't have to get too exact with this. Oh, look what I did. Okay, let's try it again. It just has to hold together long enough for me to get my pieces in there. I know this one goes here because it's the cap. Okay. Now I feel like we're moving along. Now it kind of looks like the pattern. As long as we get them close, I know I can get the pattern pieces to look pretty much like they're supposed to, because there's only like 10 pieces. So we have our pattern put together. Normally that is done as it comes out of the kit. I just iron it. So I have my pattern background, I have my fabric ironed. And now I can go ahead and start putting my pieces on. Now, as you've heard me say before, all of these pieces that you see in the box have been already pre-selected. They are pre-fused and pre-cut. The cutting is done with a laser machine, and the fusing is Steam of Seam 2. So the laser cutting is really sharp, really does a really great edge of cutting the fabric, and it almost sears the edge. So we think it's even sharper and tighter than what you could get with a die cut or with scissors. So it's nice to just be able to start, and I always try and start with whatever the furthest back piece is, and I'm going to say that that's his actual face. And basically I just kind of curl back the fabric and peel off that backing paper. It's pretty simple. Because the Steam of Seam 2 is tacky, that is going to stick onto the fabric until we can get to the iron. It isn't permanent until we fuse it, and the fusing does require a steam component. That's why they call it Steam of Seam 2. And I can work my way up at this point. I kind of like to do the most obvious pieces first, because that eliminates the pieces of the puzzle that are left. Kind of like working the edges of the puzzle. Do all the edge pieces first, the corners, then the edges, and then work your way in. And by doing so, you have fewer and fewer puzzle pieces, and then it's a little bit easier to find the pieces that are left. This is his nose, this is his hat. Because this is such an easy process, it's so user-friendly, you could have a wide variety of age groups help with this. And it's also a kind of project that you're going to have a pretty high level of success at. So it's something that, you know, if you're introducing young ones or younger ones, teenagers or even younger, to sewing, this is something that they could easily do and have a great sense of accomplishment. There's nothing worse than picking up a hobby and feeling like you can't succeed at it. Now you can see here that this is right, but this needs to go up under the brim of his hat. So all we have to do is lift this back up, because it's not fused until we hit it with that iron and with the steam. So now we have his little, well, it's not little, he has a very big puffy mustache. He may keep all of his secrets and all his magic powers in that beautiful mustache. And now his big nose. These are wonderful because they're so quick. It's really nice to make them and have these available to do holiday decorations with. Because they're so quick, you can have really nice decorations. They also make really great gifts, quick gifts, last minute gifts. And this is a really great size. It could be a pillow. It would also be really good on the back of a jacket to fill this area. I could see it on the back of a denim jacket or a vest. I could see this on a door, kind of a welcome sign on the door. And that's pretty much it for putting the pieces in place on this particular one. And you can see just how fast it goes. Excuse me. So all of these pieces are in place. Now you can see that they're all stuck on here. That is why we love the Steam 2, because it has that tackiness that will hold the pieces in place while we're working. But these are not permanent yet. They're not permanent until we hit it with both heat and moisture. It's that combination of heat and moisture that transform this into a permanent product that can withstand washing, drying, and time. Once we do that, it's permanent, and this could go through the washer and dryer cycle many times. So we're going to do that next. I'm going to go ahead and move my light box out of the way, and I'm going to trade it for my Teflon pressing sheet, which is what I use to put both underneath and on top of it during the ironing process. And I'll also get my iron out and my little spritz bottle. Now you see I have all of my pieces in place, and they still are not fused. You can see that I can pull up any of these pieces and relocate them if I needed to. So the next process is I need to apply both heat and moisture. Now as a rule, I don't put water in my iron, and that's simply because I'm a klutz, and sooner or later I'm going to knock an iron off the ironing board, and it's going to break a seal and the iron will start leaking. Or just as a matter of cause, the iron will start leaking. And so I never put water in an iron. That way the iron's not going to leak, it's not going to sputter, it's not going to go through a cleaning cycle and get on my fabric. So I instead use water in a spritz bottle, and I keep a dry iron, and it achieves the same thing as having water in the iron without any of those problematic issues. So I'm going to just go ahead and mist the project a little bit to create that same effect of having water in the iron. I'm going to cover that with my Teflon pressing sheet, and I'm going to start fusing. My Teflon pressing sheet does quite a few things for me. One thing it does is insulate the heat. It kind of is a buffer before it goes through to the fabric. So it prevents the iron from scorching any of the fabric. It also, the edge of the iron sometimes could catch the edges of one of the pieces of the applique, and it could scrunch it up and then be under the iron, and I could be scrunching up one of my pieces without knowing it and fusing it that way. And so the Teflon pressing sheet holds all those pieces perfectly in place and prevents that from happening. Another thing it does, it prevents any of the glue, the Steam 2, from coming out from the edges of the applique and getting onto the sole plate of my iron. It also prevents anything from the sole plate of my iron from transferring onto either the applique or my background. It also prevents a self-cleaning cycle from sputtering anything on the fabric. So it does a lot of things for me, and it's a one-time purchase Teflon pressing sheet. I believe I got this large one from Laura Heine because she does quite a bit of working with fusible web with her collages. Many times we had our booth across from her booth when we went to market. I've known her for quite a few years. One of my biggest issues that I have, especially when I'm doing these videos, is I feel like I need to talk a lot, and I also feel like I need to rush through it because I feel like I'm wasting time, my time or your time. But I have to keep remembering that you have to allow the process to work. The heat has to transfer through the Teflon pressing sheet and through every layer of the fabric, fusible, and background. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 layers of that heat, the fabric and the fusible web, and that has to go through each layer. So you really have to allow that process to happen. And to further that, when I finish ironing this from the top down, I'm going to flip the entire project over, re-moisten it, and then iron it again from the back, because I want to make absolutely sure that I've bonded this completely at this stage. This is the stage we can make sure that we have done it correctly. If we get to top stitching or quilting and we are getting gumming on the needle, that's an indication that at this stage we did not fuse properly. Either we did not use moisture, or we did not fuse long enough, or we did not use enough heat, but one of those things happened. You cannot over fuse Steam 2. It's not going to evaporate. So I'm going to keep doing this. Actually, I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over now. I'm going to re-moisten it. This little bottle's leaking more than it's squirting. So I'll go ahead and refuse this again completely from the back, and then I will show you what the block looks like. And then I think I'm going to try and find a little inner border and an outer border to dress it up a little bit, because this was pretty quick. I know also when my pressing sheet has lots of water on it here. I know if you still see steam coming up from your project, that means there's still moisture on the project and you need to iron a little bit more. I don't know if you could see the steam. I can certainly see it here. But this is what we really want. We want to get that fused, that bonding all the way through. Steam 2 is very much like concrete in that you have to have water in order to activate that bonding agent. Without the water, you're not activating the bonding agent, and it's not going to set up just like the concrete won't. And it's not going to hold. We also, as a rule, do not top stitch our samples. We just don't feel like it adds anything. You have to be really expert at doing that with either a satin stitch or with a buttonhole stitch to really have it add anything. And I'm not that good at it, so I certainly don't do it. I have done buttonhole stitch and satin stitches before, but in my work, it doesn't add anything. I'm not that good with these round areas, and some of the pieces are quite small. But secondly, Steam 2 does not require to be stitched down. Nothing in their directions say that it has to be stitched down. So we don't do it. We do quilt through it if it's a quilting project, but if it's not a quilting project, we don't do any stitching at all. We have done these appliques on glass, on wood, canvas, burlap, all kinds of different projects, and none of those are things that you would sew on. As long as they're bonded properly, they are permanent. If it's something that you can't use an iron on, you could use a blow dryer with a spritz bottle, and you could also use a tea towel to hold it in place as it's cooling down. So stitching isn't necessarily required. We always get questions after I say that. So I say it many times. Stitching is not required. Top stitching is not required. We do not do any top stitching on any of our samples, as it is not required. This is now permanent, and it could withstand multiple washings. And the main thing is that you get it fused properly at this point. And so I'm going to go ahead and remove my Teflon pressing sheet, and I will go upstairs to where I have all my fabric hidden. It's a vault of mysterious fabric. And I'll see if I can't find something to pull out some of the colors in this that also make me think of Christmas. And we can see if I can't find an inner border and an outer border that could make a nice Christmas finish on this. Well, I made my crazy choices. I chose a dark green stripe because I wanted something that would separate these kind of pastel-y colors from mushing together. And I did choose more Kaffe fabric, which the whole thing is kind of untraditional anyway. But I probably shouldn't be saying this, and it's a personal opinion, but I think anytime you use Kaffe fabric for a Christmas project, it's going to be an untraditional Christmas project, I think. He doesn't really have true green and true red Christmas colors in his collection. They're kind of off green and off reds, so they don't really ring out as true traditional red and green Christmas. So this color combination I thought was quirky enough. I just found it to be interesting, so this was my choice, but I don't know what to do next. It is kind of small. I mean, I certainly could quilt it. I could get it on the frame and quilt it. It certainly wouldn't take very long. But I also could make it into something like a big pillow. But that's something I can mull over in the next couple of days. But I think the colors turned out good anyway. But I'm glad to have another project finished and get my feet wet again. It seems like when I get out of the studio for more than a week, then I start getting antsy and nervous again about talking in front of people. And it may be funny because there's no people here, but I still get nervous. I still get nervous all the time. So thanks for letting me get my feet wet. Thanks for welcoming me back. And thanks for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you again next time. I've got several things lined up that I need to do. I just haven't been able to get them lined up enough to actually do them. So hope I can get that done. I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for stopping by. Until then, take care of yourself and take care of each other. And happy Kris Kringle.